Come on in and sit down. You cut the hardcore crew chewing the fat. You cut us shooting the shit. You cut us in the moment.
Well, you know what? Then I gotta start off with something. I must have been in some eggnog comatose. What the hell did I miss with Hulk Hogan endorsing RiffRaff to be a WWE wrestler? Did anybody else catch that, or was it just me?
Yeah,
I saw something about it, but then I just went, oh, brother.
Joe, did you catch that?
Unfortunately, I did, and, you know, I think what they're trying to do is just trying to win, just trying to get more interest in their company. That's, you know, literally that's the only thing they can do at the moment, because look at all the stuff they had, and it's failed, like so many times on so many fronts.
Apparently they want to fail on another front.
Yeah,
He's not even a D-lister. He's like an F-lister or some shit. It's like having... It's almost as bad as having Snooki wrestle at WrestleMania. Which they did do that.
Well, I was going to say, which were Snooki or Kevin Federline?
Snooki.
No, actually, Snooki actually wrestled. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah, she actually wrestled. Remember the imitation Snooki that they had in TNA who couldn't wrestle? So I can't really say that Snooki was a bad wrestler.
What about Kevin Federline?
Okay, yeah, that you know, I'll have to go with that.
Yeah. And of course, now if you know, to top things off, they have WWE. They just brought the Ascension up from NXT, and I call them now Demolition 2K15, but it was either that or I call them the LOD-Crack babies, because that's what they look like.
No, and I'm not sure if you guys are familiar on the eastern, you know, states, in the indie scene in the eastern states like Jersey, Pennsylvania, and so forth. There's a guy who goes by Grey Wolf, who's just he's a ripoff of that character from a video game, God of War, Kratos.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
So he's actually, you know, the guy uses the Kratos gimmick. He doesn't call himself Kratos, he calls himself Grey Wolf, which to me sounds more of a Native American name than a god of thunder. But
and rock and roll.
Yep. Now here's the thing: as funny as it sounds, the individual was once a rosebud, and he's seen the. You know, he was part of it, and somebody seen his gimmick, and that's also why the Ascension. If you look at the Ascension's face makeup, are the exact same thing of this guy.
Yeah, I was like, they didn't have a dang triangle in NXT on the head.
So
it kind of makes it weird. Why would they do that to them? I mean, they were a very dominant tag team in NXT.
Well, I can easily answer that. It's when you look at NXT as the WWE's version, okay, of an indie promotion, okay? You know, they're an indie promotion, and what they do is they're basically trying to, you know, develop the talent. So what happens is they look at, once these guys have done everything they can in their little indie promotion, it's now they bring them to the main roster and they say, well, you know what, let's turn them into something different, you know, let's turn them into this type of promotion, you know, into these type of wrestlers. So, you know, again, that's what happens. You know, they try to give them a better gimmick, and good or bad, that's what you get.
Go ahead, Rick, before I ask a question.
Well, and sometimes it turns out good, and sometimes it's bad. And we've seen wrestlers come up from NXT where it's been great, and other ones where it's failed. I mean, a couple of wrestlers. Go ahead.
I was going to ask, which one do you believe were success and which one you think are failures from the NXT roster? That's not in the main current roster.
Actually, the ones that I think have been so far a failure is Emma, is for one. Big E, with his New Day gimmick that he's just came. Before that, I thought he was, kind of failing pretty hard. Fandango is another failure. But so if you want to look at successfuls, you got to look at anybody who's in the Shield: Rollins, Reigns, and of course Ambrose. Mm-hmm. So, what about you, Joe?
You know what? I gotta say the same thing. It's the ones that have hit really well have been, the Shield, the former Shield members. So currently, nobody else that has traveled from NXT has made that type of impact like those guys have. So I think that's why you're seeing the Ascension with new gimmicks. That's why you're going to probably see other guys with, coming in and with new gimmicks, but it's because they want to give them something else.
Let me ask you a real quick question, and then I'll pass it back over to Lance or James. What do you think about the Ascension taking on these local jobbers? Do you think it's a good thing or a bad thing?
Absolutely, it's a good thing. You know why? They need to bring back the jobbers, and it sounds very bad, but they need to bring the jobbers. The reason is, when you battle other superstars, it kind of diminishes the pay-per-views. We always used to watch Saturday night's main event. We used to watch the Wrestling Challenge or Wrestling Superstars, Worldwide Wrestling, and so forth, where it was stars taking on jobbers and beating them. Just to make it like, okay, now you got to see this wrestler on TV. Then when you got to see Saturday night's main event or pay-per-view, it was a special thing because now you finally got to see superstars versus superstars, and that's where it all should be. Today, I think fans are just bored. That's why wrestling storylines and angles and whatever you want to call it don't last long, because everybody's already fighting each other 1,000 times over, so everybody gets bored of the same person. So they should bring in. Plus, it helps the local indie guys get on TV, get noticed, even though they're taking a beating and getting pinned. But at least they're getting out there and getting some credibility.
All right. James, you had a question. Go ahead.
No, I'm going back to what I was going to ask for myself as to who I think is successful. And y'all been correct, really, on the Shield. And, really, you have, I'm looking at, success. I think there's been only about 5 people, maybe, who would success, maybe. And that's the 3 members of the Shield, Bray Wyatt, and I'll even add Paige to it. Everybody else who's been from the NXT roster hasn't been really that great. I mean, you kind of question, why you say Paige for? It's just the fact that, you say she was green, but I kind of disagree. She improved when she continued on that feud, but I'm afraid at the same time right now, the fact she's with Total Divas.
Well, I still stand by that. When she first came to WWE, she was still very green. I don't think she should have gotten that title, that first title, as quick as she should have gotten it. But over the past 6-7 months, she has gotten better. I don't think that she should have deserved the title run that she just got. When there are people like Natalya, who I believe deserve that title run at least once, and she hasn't gotten it. So it's just my thought. We were talking about wrestlers coming up from the NXT, and they would change a gimmick. Another wrestler that's been changed, reportedly going to be changing his gimmick, is Adrian Neville. Now he's supposed to be called up, and he's going to be getting a Mighty Mouse type gimmick.
Oh Lord! Here he goes to Saturday.
Yeah, exactly. Now, the gimmick is supposedly where because he's a high flyer and he can beat, wrestlers twice his size and strength. Lance, what are your thoughts?
Sheiky Baby said it's best fucking bullshit.
Yeah.
I heard. I'm sorry. I heard that also that gimmick's kind of supposed to be like kind of a Crash Holly gimmick too.
Oh, it's going to be more like a Crash Holly? Okay, I've been reading more of the Mighty Mouse.
Yeah, that's what they said, but they also said they also kind of have a little bit of the Crash Holly type style.
And about the whole, y'all put about that whole who's getting, about basically how the earlier people that come up from NXT were the ones that have gotten over, basically. Well, think about that. That kind of reminds me of something I saw. Vince is pissed that NXT is seen as a superior product.
Well, you know what? I think he's pissed because, again, it was not his original idea, and it was something that, he's like, all right, he let his son, Triple H, run it, and it's become a very big,
and then
great product.
Showed up.
Exactly. So, Joe, what do you think about NXT? I know
you know what? NXT is a great concept. It's if you think about it, it's Triple H's own little independent promotion. That's all it is. It's a promotion within a promotion, and it's a great way for indie talent to come into a company, get the right exposure on TV, and see if they can cut it. And if they do, they move on to the main roster. It's a good concept, and it's sad to say, when you have young, eager individuals who want to make a name for themselves, they'll be 10 times better than the talent on Raw or SmackDown. So, me personally, I would rather catch an NXT show than a Raw or SmackDown show.
Okay, yeah, and I have to agree because NXT, as we've been saying on over on Billy's show, the NXT shows have just been that far more impressive. The wrestling has been that far more impressive. It just seems that when you're in NXT, you can do almost whatever you want because you want to get to that next level. And then once you get to the WWE, it's like, okay, forget everything you've done, and all the moves you can do, you have to cut that in half. And it's just like
because it's really, you also have to think about this. The creative writers on NXT knows the wrestling. The ones on Raw and SmackDown are freaking Hollywood writers.
Yeah, they don't know their ass from a hole in the ground when it comes to wrestling.
But you know what, though? It's not even about the writing. It's even about what's being done in the ring. If you look at what happens in the ring, half the moves that happen in the ring, it's like, okay, guys, you got to kind of stop doing that because you have to think about longevity of your career because these guys are wrestling, not just once a night. Now they're wrestling. What, how many times a week? 300 days a year, sometimes more. So, they're being told that there's a certain move list that you cannot do. And I think, we've never really covered this. I mean, I think the only person that really had an issue that I've read about on a certain interview was Davey Boy Smith, Jr., who actually left the company because he had a huge move list, and they cut him down to like 3 or 4 moves. We, hear fans bitching about how Cena only has 5 moves. Well, because the company only gives him so many moves. Joe, what are your thoughts about this?
Well, even throughout the old 80s, the WWE has always been like that. It's been a concept where they don't want anybody, like Hogan. If you saw Hulk Hogan wrestle in Japan and other locations, he wrestled. He actually did a lot. If you look at WWE, he didn't. They limit his moveset. So again, when you see Cena and these other guys on Raw, they have to limit them. Now the NXT people, let's say, they are that's going to go full berserk and do everything that they can because obviously they want to be noticed.
And what I find funny is they limit that, and then they have other matches, such as Dean Ambrose and Bray Wyatt, where they allow you to go crazy and do all these, bizarre moves like jumping off of ambulances, going through tables.
But don't remember, it's when you allow something like that, that's your top match. That's the match on the card where you want the fans to pop. and then usually they follow it up with something else. So they need the fans hyped, pumped, ready to go. And what do? You give them what they want. You give them a car crash. You know, you give them, Godzilla stomping to Tokyo. You give them everything, and then from there, the next match over, if there is another match over, it can suck, but the fans are so hyped now that they got that momentum going. So if you do, let's say, like you say, if you have Dean Ambrose versus Bray Wyatt and they're doing a great battle back and forth, and it excites the crowd and says, now this is wrestling, blah, blah, blah. And after that, the fans are still hyped. They want to see more. Out comes Cena versus Orton for the 1 millionth time. The fans are still active, and it actually has to make the next guys do better. So it's sometimes even me, you throw in a match that's your car crash just to keep the momentum going. That's when, even for me, when you write a show down and you go match by match and you book everything, you can say, this is going to be the best match in the night. This is going to be the car crash. And that's technically why they do set stuff like that.
All right. Well, let's kind of switch gears a little bit. I know that we have we want to talk about your favorite company, TNA, for a bit.
Wait, are they still in business?
Yeah.
They are still in business, believe it or not.
Yeah, for all the 100 homes that are watching.
And surprisingly, TNA, she's been Daisy Carter has been doing a lot of re-signings over the past couple of weeks. She's re-signed literally her whole roster. Has been trying to get other people. I think she's even trying to get Alberto Del Rio at the moment, who's now, I forget his current ring name. It's Alberto El Patron. Excuse me. It's not reports if she's officially signed him yet, but she's been making a lot of waves. I'm not sure if you've been following it at all, or if you've just completely lost interest in her. What's your thoughts?
Well, you know what? I'm going to surprise you guys. I actually have followed some of it. And the reason I followed some of it was I wanted to see how they were going to dig themselves out of this hole. Right now, they either paying less money for the use of the network, or the network is paying them to keep their product on there. Again, I still say, I don't see, a reason for them to have changed such from a Spike TV, which is more households, to basically a place that's in oblivion, a network where only a few random people, can watch. So, but I have to say, they're solidifying their talent roster. They're trying to get the talent to stay on. With Jeff Jarrett's Global Force Wrestling, with Ring of Honor, with other indies wanting to sign these people, it's a good idea to solidify that talent. She's obviously trying to get her talent and trying to get more names into the company to make it matter. I think if you want to make your company matter, move back to Spike. Hell, move to TNT, move to TBS, someplace that fans don't have to pay extra money to watch that network. Or have to pay a company like DirecTV a premium package, order a premium package just to see your product,
Yeah, and I could even say, or even, a lot of people are going to be watching some kind of a streaming site just to watch it. They're not going to be able to, pay that extra $17 for that, to get the channel. Lance, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, with the whole, about the whole TNA going to Destination America, I don't have that back here, but I do in the living room. But Friday nights are my family movie night. And two, they're kind of shooting themselves in the foot by going to a smaller network. But a couple of things Joe said, the going back to Spike ain't an option, because the Spike pretty much said we don't want the wrestling business anymore. And Turner, which is TNN, TBS, and something else, that's the reason don't want to be in the wrestling business, because that's why they sold off WCW in the beginning to begin with.
All right, James, what do you?
TNA, I kind of feel this is going to be very interesting how they do Destination America. And it's going to be very intriguing how this works. I mean, the live show is tomorrow. And then after that, we go to Fridays, which I don't know why would they do it. It's just very intriguing. I mean, there's some names that they re-signed was good, and some is like, why?
To fill out the roster.
You know what? I was talking with Jack Shit the other night, and she was asking if wrestlers smoked. And I actually did a look up because I did a research that I didn't really know this question. And I'm surprised to find out how many wrestlers today actually do smoke cigarettes. Joe, do you know any wrestlers? Are any wrestlers in your company ever smoke cigarettes or?
The better question is who doesn't?
Really?
You got to remember one thing. The main thing is when you look at stuff, wrestling is people may not think it's that, because everything's so exposed, it's not a big thing. But, there's a lot of, anxiety. There's a lot of, stress when it comes to it. There's people on the road a lot. So, yeah, there's a lot of wrestlers that smoke. What? I can't say, but yes, they do smoke. And here's the main thing. Look at RVD's trunks. That should give you an idea what he smokes.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, that's well documented what he smokes.
We were and I even told her that, drugs was kind of more expected, but she was like, cigarettes. It's like, how can, wrestlers, they're athletes, you figure that them smoking, they would have, be all winded and stuff. And I'm like, not necessarily. They take other drugs to counter that, I'm guessing. But I realized that there was people like Chris Jericho smoked. Even Randy Orton was smoking. CM Punk smokes, was supposed to be drug-free. I guess John Cena was reported caught, seen smoking a few times.
Golden Boy smokes.
Yeah, exactly. It's just funny.
He's smoking those Cocoa Pops.
What did you think of Raw this past week?
Yeah, you know what? I did not. The situation of firing and then bringing back the authority again. It's something like, you just did this big pay-per-view. You passed it. You got the authority finally vanquished, and now you bring them back because there's obviously no creative minds working to get this thing turned around, come up with something new. And it just, to me, it was really, and the whole firing business, to me, they could have said, well, you know what, you're suspended for, I don't know, for how many long times, because we all know the firing is just an excuse for them to be, rest up from concussions and all that stuff and then come back.
Exactly. And, and the suspended thing would have been, better. You're suspended. Gone. Get the hell out of here. But, they have to use the you're fired like the way Vince does. And she does not have, it's not the same. And I don't think she gets it.
Well, I also like the confetti that they did at the end.
I think the only person who was really shocked and really hurt that, that Cena destroyed, quote unquote, destroyed their lives was Cena. It's like, who's buying this? It's like, really? Come on. I have to agree with you, Joe, 100%.
We'll be back by Rumble.
Yeah, exactly. Before Rumble.
It's either I give it the Raw they come here, which is this upcoming Monday, or the one in Dallas, which is that week after.
Yeah, they'll be gone for a week.
So.
Yeah.
Here's the thing with this, and I gotta say this because I've seen so many of these firing storylines. Why not? Okay, why not make it? Let's make it really believable. How about you let them really be released from the company, okay, and let them be, let the contracts be negotiated with other companies. work with another company. Say, hey, look, say that this person's come. Let them go to Ring of Honor. Let them go to some other promotion, an indie promotion for the time being. Say, we got released and I'm taking bookings. Make it believable, like AJ Styles did. Remember when AJ went all over the place when he was supposedly fired?
Yeah.
He went to different companies defending a title. Now, you can have Ziggler perform in other companies. You can have, Ryback and all these guys. They could be a package. They can go wrestle for indie companies. And, they don't have to ask for a lot of money. Because they could be secretly working for the WWE. And then, my friend, bring them back.
But you know what, the WWE, unfortunately, they don't think that far, and another problem is, they have what I call Vince fear. They don't want to think outside the WWE. Anything outside the WWE is a threat.
And also, if I may, Vince has this whole thing of what's mine is mine.
Yeah, exactly.
And what's yours is also mine.
Especially for $9.99.
The idea that you have, Joe, is absolutely on key, and it should be right. That's the way it should go. And it would probably make WWE wrestling so much more interesting if they'd realize that they could think outside the box or think outside their own box. But that's the problem with WWE. They just won't do it. Why is that?
Oh, why? Because they obviously are afraid of something of this nature of another company saying, hey, you know what? How about you do stay with us? How about you do work with us and don't worry about that other company? So that's pretty much the whole situation with that. So they just don't want to lose control of the talent. But I say you want to make it fresh, you want to make it easy, you want to keep these people on, going. I said, hey, you know what? Play off that angle. Play it off and let's go with it.
I think was the only one thing that TNA had on that option was where all their wrestlers were kind of is what they call free agents. WWE, I don't think there's a lot of free agents in WWE, although I think there was some report that said there are more free agents in wrestling than there appear to be, or at least in WWE.
Well,
but
can I kind of explain that?
Yep.
Because how I work personally as an independent contractor, which means either side can terminate the contract whenever they want. Now, big guys they probably have seen a tied up in that even a team of lawyers couldn't get him out of that. But certain people, like a certain guy named Phil Brooks, was an independent contractor. And most of them are independent contractors, so they can't fire them or hire them whenever they want. But they don't want the wrestlers to know that they can walk if they want.
Yeah, and I think Brooks probably already well knew that. I know we're kind of
he knew that. If anybody else in Best in the World, he even stated it in there.
Back to you, Joe.
It's coming to that point where we are just getting bored with the product, and they have no idea what else to do. So
yeah,
they're just grasping at straws, in my opinion.
Well, know what it is? It also feels like that the WWE is kind of like they're trying to go back to the golden era. They're trying to recreate it in so many senses. I mean, if you look at some of the tag teams, they're trying to bring back the tag team division, and all the gimmicks are starting to have that 80s feel.
You know what? I'm going to say something, and I'm probably going to give away a little bit of secret for me. It's me, my road agent, my booker, and myself actually had the same discussion. We were in a big meeting and says, you know what? The fans today, want to see something. They want to see something like it used to be. Let's face it. Today, everybody's playing. There is no Road Warriors look-alike teams. There is no Ric Flairs. There is no Undertakers. There is no guys that are really extravagant, like The Rock, Austin. There's no attention grabbers. There's no more Hulk Hogans. So if you look at it, what Vince or what the WWE is trying to do is basically rebuilding these people. They're trying to come up with gimmicks to see if these guys will be, if anybody's interested in watching them. So they have to come up with the gimmicks, because obviously what you have now, it's not winning.
And yeah, I disagree. I mean, we've talked about several times how the wrestling is kind of on a downward spiral because it's become, like I said, very, very plain. More than once we've talked about it. And some of the gimmicks are working and other the gimmicks really aren't. We talked again, the only one we talked about earlier, the Shield, the only big three gimmicks that really seem to be working. Daniel Bryan, who's back, good to see him back. That works. I don't want to see remakes. I don't want to see rehashes. Rehashes for me always just come up here as that, as a remake, and it's just kind of like bland. I know a lot of other people might want to see it because it's like, okay, yeah, they're bringing this back. I don't want to see another Attitude Era either. I want to see something totally new, something completely down the road that we've never seen before.
But you see, that is the problem with wrestling today. You can't come up with something new because everything has been done. I think we've all can agree everything has been done. There's nothing else that they can do that's going to make it's going to change. Let's face it, the current roster today is nothing compared to the Attitude Era, and it's nothing. It makes the 80s. It makes the 80s look. It's the greatest era. I always said it. The 80s were the greatest era in professional wrestling. Even though the Attitude Era NWO gimmick thing was the best thing, also for the 90s, 80s, you had everything. You had all the territories. You had all the gimmicks everywhere. Today, and then when the Attitude Era came out, they wanted to make it edgier and serious, but they had the talkers. The Attitude Era was all about talkers. It wasn't about ring. It wasn't about the ring. It was the talking. It was the charisma. It was the personalities of the talent. Let's face it, 80% of the time, we just tuned in to see what The Rock was going to say, Austin was going to say, anybody was going to say.
What kind of dirty jokes Val Venis was going to make.
Absolutely. Today, in the 2000s, what do you have?
Nothing, and the reason why is that. Because, again, it's not really the wrestlers. It's the WWE that limits them from doing what they want to do. Back in the Attitude Era, they had to fight with the WCW, and they finally said, here, take the chains off them. Go ahead, do what you want to do, say what you want to say. If you remember, Triple H and HBK, who were one of the two biggest guys back then, were walking in and they were playing strip poker in the middle of the ring. They were putting sausages down their pants. And even though Vince was hating it, they still continued to do it and saying, hey, listen, the fans are liking this shit. You don't know what the hell you're doing. Hey, let us do this stuff. This is going to get you ratings. And what were their ratings? In the 5s and 6s. What are the ratings now? I mean, they're the only ones left in wrestling. 2s, if they're lucky.
Well,
on a good night.
And again, look what we're talking about. Look what we are going over. It's again, you're talking about an era that was 10 times better. We don't have that luxury. Today's wrestling is limited to one major promotion. Yeah. When you have competition, especially back then, it's going to bring out the best talent. Vince saw what he needed to do, and he did. He created the Attitude Era, and he let everybody go berserk. And it wasn't the ring, because we pretty much, if you take away all the way of, let's just say, if you take away the talking, the personalities, the characters, and the charisma, everybody basically wrestles the same way. So the Attitude Era was the era for best talkers and best gimmicks, because they knew what they wanted to do. As today, I'm sorry, they just don't have nobody to do that. Nobody can talk. Nobody can capture the imagination. There's no one larger than life. There's no one that are different from everybody else. You can select 10 wrestlers or more that all wear black boots and black trunks and black knee pads. And as far as anything else, that's it. what they're trying to do is they're trying to bring color back into it. It's funny as it sounds. They're trying to bring the gimmicks back so they have alternatives for people, especially what they're trying to do the PG era. They want to give something for the kids. So you're going to see the face-painted warriors. You're going to see probably again the monsters like Kamala, Bundy, or so forth. Let's face it. That in order to go forward today in professional wrestling, you're going to have to go backwards.
Yeah.
That's an interesting way of looking at it, and I haven't really, that's something we never really thought about it. I thought that maybe going back was just a rehash.
You feel like this. I don't want to cut you off, Rick. We did the same thing. We had a meeting and we talked about it. What can we do to bring back create the interest? And you know what? You have to rehash. You have to redo all this. But like this, as funny as it sounds, we're bringing back the Midnight Express as a tag team. The gimmick, not the name or the theme, but the gimmick, the Pretty Boys, the Fabulous Ones. It's a Fabulous Ones Midnight Express. It's a hash of that. A Rock and Roll Express type tag team. The gimmicky mass teams. It's the big bruising monsters, muscular guys that look bigger than before. You have to go backwards in order to make money today. Because let's face it, after the 80s ended, and you have the Attitude Era, anything that follows the Attitude Era today, anything today cannot compete with what we used to see. Because there's no one that can equal the success of those people from the past. And what's the difference between today and yesterday? Even in the Attitude Era, territories. All the wrestlers from the Attitude Era came from territories. A couple of them came from regular schools, but they did go through WCW, ECW, and WWE. So they did have the territories. And in the 80s, whoa, Vince raided every territory to get the roster he had. So did the NWA. That, again, you don't have that luxury. So they have to come up with gimmicks to hand to people to see if it'll work. 10 to 1, the idea of a new Road Warrior / Demolition team is something even I have been looking into. Because we need to bring that allure back. It's, you can say, and I know I'm going long-winded, guys, but here's the thing. When you tuned in and you saw the Road Warriors running to the ring and they beat the crap out of whoever it was, you were shocked. When Hulk Hogan ripped his shirts and dropped legs, that was a big shocker. All the characters that you saw, Flair, I can go down the line. You were mesmerized on these people. Who do the kids have to look up today? John Cena? That's it? The Shield is a gimmick, and they're go over. Now separately, they're still strong, but the first thing when you look at either one of them is Shield. You don't see them as individuals. You see them as Shield. And to quote Ric Flair, "Woo! I better drink something now. My throat is dry."
And I see some of what you're saying. It makes a lot of sense. I just think, again, without going back and circle too much around to it, the Ascension, it makes sense that they're trying to go back, and it was good without the what I call like the football gear on it. It's just in the face paint. They could have done it with the way they looked at NXT once they came in the WWE with the the half shirts on. That would have been great. It would have worked just as good, and I think, I understand why they're doing the face paint, because the face paint, they're bringing that back in the WWE, back just as much as they are with a lot of other wrestlers, so I guess maybe that's what they were trying to do, to try to make them a little bit more marketable. But
I'm sorry, but here's the thing really is that you look at a couple people that came from NXT using their gimmick from NXT, they never had a reaction. Look at Adam Rose, Bo Dallas. They was like, you just like, huh? I mean, Emma, hell, I even give Emma that thing. some gimmicks work in NXT, but it doesn't transition to the correct thing in the main roster. They tried it, and I guess that's why they, changing up their gimmicks.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think we were. It is understandable, but I think again we were talking about how wrestlers, how WWE is kind of like flashing back to the golden era, and some of those gimmicks do kind of reflect to the back of the old '80s stuff, and some of it's working, some of it isn't. And I think they're still trying to figure a lot of this stuff out. It's a lot of it's hit and miss.
And you know what? Here's one thing, Rick. So WWE is dealing with a whole different audience. You knew that they are the Road Warriors.
Mm-hmm.
They were Road Warrior ripoffs. To the kids today and the new fans, I should say, they don't look at it as that. Oh, wow, it's a new person. That's where, forget about, and you're in the business today, forget about what happened. You don't worry about the fans who say they're ripoffs. Oh, no, you want to capture the new fans who to them will see this as new. Hell, they can grab Ricky Steamboat Jr. and you can package him as the new Dragon, okay? Would the fans today know who it is? No. Older fans will.
So does that mean we should bring Kevin Nash's son in and have him start wrestling?
Well, probably. Started right now, but
Hey, bring him and let him team up with Cody Hall.
No,
Yeah.
but I heard Cody Hall's now part of the Bullet Club now.
Is he really? Even after he's still like $1,000 off his dad?
He just joined yesterday.
Oh, I guess that's what made him part of the Bullet Club. And with that, folks, I think we're going to wrap this up. We'd like to thank you all for listening in, and make sure you can check us out on our Facebook page. That's facebook.com/Hardcore Wrestling Radio. And if you want to join in the conversation, check us out on HardcoreWrestlingRadio.com. Joe, thanks for joining us. Where can everyone find you at?
Well, you can find me on Facebook.com at Joseph Knight Manager, and you can also find me. You can follow us on our Classic Wrestling Association Facebook page, which is facebook.com Classic Wrestling Association. So tune into us, like our page. We got a couple of things that we're going to be revealing. We have a big show coming in April, and we also have a bigger show coming up in May in Long Island, New York. So we're going to be pretty busy this year.
All right. And we have James from the Big Easy. James, what do you got going on?
I am on twitch.tv/fatboy504. I still need to give you the link, Rick, but I do 2K14 gameplay, and I might go back to iVlog, but it's just gonna be it's more on me on Twitch, or you can find me on the Facebook page or on Twitter.
Alrighty, and that's Twitter is Fatboy504.
Yes.
Okay. And of course we have Lance Moss. You can check him out at youtube.com/LanceMossTV. Lance, what do you got going on?
album reviews, NASCAR discussion videos, redneck woman-cooking videos, musical equipment reviews, some rant, and very soon I will have the the archives of controversies and scandals up on my channel.
Alright. So for everyone here, I'm your hardcore host, Rick Head, saying we'll see you when we see you.
Thank you for listening to this edition of In the Moment. Make sure you follow us at any one of our locations, whether it's YouTube, Dailymotion, and now SoundCloud.com under the name HWR Show. Until the next time, this is your hardcore host, Rick Head, saying we'll see you when we see you.